Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle podcast show. I'm your host, Jonathan, and I am glad you're here. On this show, I talk with industry-leading experts about connecting with others, impacting your niche, and striving to live the best life possible. It's all about sparking meaningful conversations around business ownership and entrepreneurship. The Heart Healthy Hustle show is about finding connection with proactive peers and navigating a healthy work life with full autonomy. So whether you're driving to or from work right now, exercising, eating, or just relaxing, come hang out and get ready to enjoy another inspiring episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle show. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. I'm your host, Jonathan Frederick. Today's guest, Michael Isom. He's the owner of Vault AIS, specializing in wealth and protection strategies, assisting clients in increasing their wealth and benefits while lowering their risks. Michael has been married since December of 1993 to his best friend, Wendy, and is the father of two very talented kids, Kennedy and Caden. Michael enjoys fitness training at a high level, most things with a motor in it, and spending time traveling the world with his wife and two kids. Michael, I'm really excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Man, I teared up when you mentioned my wife and kids. It's been such a big part of my life and one of my greatest sources of power to date. And so that felt good to hear that. Appreciate that.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is what it's all about, and I appreciate you being on the show. Anything else you want to include on that intro? Just give us a short glimpse into your day-to-day, what a day in the life might look like.
Okay. You mentioned in the intro that I like anything with a motor in it. I think that I could add some clarification to that or add to that. I started an off-road race team 3.5 years ago. I grew up in a dirt bike shop riding motorcycles and racing here and there through the 90s and into the early 2000s. And it was 3.5 years ago that our 16-year-old son at the time, Caden, and I decided to start a race team. And I started this race team wanting to connect with our son through adventurous activities. So all of you out there listening, if you're looking for ways to connect with your kids, if you're looking for ways to connect with your spouse or significant other or any team members on your team, I am a firm believer in adventurous activities. It exposes yourself and it exposes others, and there's a connection, an emotional connection of trust and a bond that I believe can only be created through adventurous activities. So our son and I started this race team. We come up with the name Mobbin, Mobbin, and on Facebook, Mobbin Racing. And we come up with Mobbin because our son at the time was doing a lot of snowboarding with his buddies out here in Utah, and they would use this term mobbin. We're going down the hill mobbin. And my wife looked up mobbin in the Urban Dictionary, and it's had a definition. It was in there, it had a definition, and it was driving around at excessive speeds for no other reason than to have fun. And so mobbin, yeah, isn't that great? So mobbin racing stuck. We created a race team. My son and I, Jonathan, it went on for about 6 months. We did 4 races in the Nevada desert, big races. Our longest one was the famous Mint 400 south of Vegas. And we took 8th overall out of 110 people in that race in our division, which was a lot of fun. First time doing it. It was 400 miles. It took us 8 hours to complete it. And our son got sick, so we sold everything off after that. He's doing great now today. And then I started the race team back up again 1.5 years ago, and I put a client in my car with me now. Each race, we do 7 races a year. We have big sponsorships that come in and assist us. And our longest race to date, which we're now preparing for again this August, is from Las Vegas, Nevada to Reno, Nevada. It's 540 miles. And if you wonder how we sit in a car for 12 hours and not get out, we wear condom catheters.
That's crazy. So we'll get into that more later. But we usually start out the show.
Yeah.
We usually do start out with some kind of a saying that you maybe live by, a motivational quote, maybe something you got up on your wall at the office, wherever, that you live by, and share with the audience what it means to you.
So this is on my wall here in my office. Disciplined spending, saving, and investing are irrelevant without disciplined thinking. In the financial services industry, I talk with clients every day about finance and money. And one of my old business partners is a gentleman that you've had on your show, Jonathan, Garrett Gunderson.
Yeah, for sure.
And Garrett, and many of you listening may know Garrett and what he's been up to. He has New York Times bestseller. He has a great book out right now called 5-Day Work Weekend. It's on its way to New York Times bestseller. And Garrett and I also wrote another financial book together. But we had a partner, Les McGuire, that said, when we talk about books and other things, I'll mention this more, but it's really about questioning our thoughts and asking ourselves, is this true or not what we're thinking, and especially around finance and money.
Speaking on finances as well, because as you know, the demographic for my show, a lot of my audience are younger, between 20 and 35, up to 45 even. And, finances at that age, it's a challenge, especially for business owners. My friends who are founders who have found success in their first 5 years or so, they're generally delegating that to accountants right away, shake their head, roll their eyes. They still are kind of clueless, which I think it's good. Yeah. You delegate when you don't know how, but the lack of expertise or any kind of true grasp around finances, especially for people who it matters the most for, business owners, it kind of blows my mind. And I'm in that boat still. So I'm really excited to learn more from you. And let's go into your story a little bit, Michael. How did you transition from, you got a lot going on, especially with the race team and everything. And I love that that's how that happened and kind of came up organically out of just desire to increase the bonds in your family there. That's fantastic and really inspiring, actually. And I just want to know how you transitioned from maybe go back in time a little bit. So from struggling to find your purpose to, where you are now, a strong, structured man of vision.
Awesome. I started my entrepreneurial career when I was 22 years old. I'm 46 today. And at the age of 22, it was when I was engaged to my wife, Wendy, today. And at that time, I was going to school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was taking some marketing classes, some classes on finance, financial planner. I wasn't sure. And I responded to an ad to sell cell phones. So if you can imagine, Jonathan, 1993 cell phones were this big Motorola brick phone. And I took the job to sell cell phones in August of 1993. And my first 30 days at the age of 22 in August of 1993, I made $20,000 in 30 days selling cell phones.
In 1993, that's quite a bit of money.
It was. It's a lot of money today. It was definitely a lot of money back then. I continued selling cell phones from August of 93 through 1999, making no less than that amount of money every month.
How is that possible?
We were paid at the time $225 per activation, and cell phones were just coming out, and there was competition coming in. And the first Motorola flip phone came out the end of 1993. It was called the DP550. And Jonathan, I had not come from money. And all of a sudden I found myself, as my peers, my classmates from high school, was struggling, eating top ramen noodles and going to school. I'm out there crushing it, making over $250,000 a year, buying rental homes and doing this and doing that and making money and losing money and spending a lot of money. And that's when my education really took off, was through the experiences I had around making that kind of money at a young age.
Love to get into some of those experiences. Can you think back? And it doesn't even have to be the worst experience, but go into some of those experiences for my audience, because I know a lot of them are in a similar boat where, even a pretty close friend of mine, I was having a beer with him the other day, and he was talking about how they go out to dinner with some of their friends, and they're sitting there, and their friends are kind of grumbling. They hate their job, or like you said, they're just out of school, struggling financially, and he's sitting there not sure how to empathize because he's doing well. He's earning it for sure. He's doing very well. He's smart with his money, but I think it'd be very interesting for people like him to hear what are some of those experiences that you from 93 to 99 that maybe you ran into, maybe a low point, high points, things like that.
Yeah. Well, the lessons, Jonathan, didn't come for me until 2010. So I left the cell phone industry and got into the financial services industry, still making great money. I knew I could sell. I knew I could hustle. And I wanted to learn more about finance and money, especially with the amount of money that I had made and saved and investments that I had. And so I went and started interviewing at Merrill Lynch, and then I met Garrett Gunderson, Ray Hooper, and Les McGuire the summer of 2000. And we formed a business together where we started studying, and I just continued to have the success in the financial services industry similar to the success that I had selling cell phones, because I could sell, but I had this drive to understand finance and money. And it all came to a screeching halt the end of 2007, where I started succumbing to this mindset of high risk equals high rate of return and low risk equals low rate of return that was taught by the financial institutions. And I was seeking a high rate of return. And I write about this in the book that Garrett Gunderson and I wrote called What Would the Rockefellers Do? I share my personal story. But at the end of 2007, I had lost over $4 million in a bad investment, having succumbed to high risk equals high rate of return. I was basically gambling, and I lost. And the main characteristic, the single biggest lesson among all the others that came, but the single biggest one is that I had relinquished control instead of maintaining control of my cash, and I was gambling, and that gamble bit me in the ass. I was married, had 2 kids, and I did not work in 2008, 2009, and 2010. I was hiding. I was suicidal. I was a mess. And I was able to pull out of that and create what I've created today and earn back all that money. But there were some huge lessons that came as a result of that experience.
What's one of the biggest lessons you can think of?
Yeah. Okay. So again, the biggest one was maintaining control versus relinquishing control, but it also was the turning point for me to find my purpose and passion, because, and I share about this in my book, but it was October 2010 on a Tuesday morning when there was a knock at our door, and it was my father-in-law at 6 a.m. in the morning. As I opened the door and had this conversation with my father-in-law, I saw 2 U-Haul trucks backing up to our driveway of our house. And my father-in-law said, "I'm here to move Wendy, my wife, and our 2 kids out." And I said, "No one's going anywhere." And I slammed the door in his face. Well, 12 hours later, they were gone, and I was on the bathroom floor in total pain and agony, realizing the effect of the decisions that I had made years prior, putting all of our family's life savings at risk. And in that moment on the bathroom floor, questioning life itself, I had a rush come over my body to figure out and to extract the lessons so no one else ever had to experience what I did in that pain and misery. And so today, Jonathan, our financial firm that I created is called Vault AIS, and AIS stands for number 1 asset, number 1 investment, and number 1 strategy. And Jonathan, if you were to talk to a typical financial planner and you were to ask them about assets, what do you think they would talk to you about when they talk to you about assets?
I would just feel like they were trying to sell me the whole time. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to sell you some sort of a financial product or asset around finance and money. We all know I am so firm with all of my clients and all of our learning materials that the number one, and this goes back to the quote about disciplined spending, saving, and investing are irrelevant without disciplined thinking. Our first pursuit is to assist someone in their thinking. And so when it comes to assets, it's about your human life value assets. And your human life value assets are your mental capital, right? What podcast are you listening to? You know, are you listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle? Are you educating yourself and increasing your mental capital, your human life value, and then leveraging that in the marketplace? What books are you reading? What conversations are you having to increase your mental capital, your human life value assets, and then acknowledging that you can take that and go create more property value with it in your life. And property value would be those assets like investments and your business and, real estate and things of that nature. So number one asset is you. You are your number one asset. People are assets. Things are not. And if you want to increase more cash in your life, focus on increasing your knowledge and your expertise first, and then take that to the marketplace to exchange value and have dollars follow that value in your life. So that's number one asset. Like the clarity that came to me, meeting with Garrett Gunderson, meeting with other mentors to put this together for me to figure it out for myself and then to share it with others. So you are your number one asset. And then number one investment for AIS, if you think about in your life, all the cash that's come into your life, where does it come from? It's come from your ability to produce as an entrepreneur or as a business owner.
For sure. So that's the asset application.
Yes. That's you continuing to gain clarity and knowledge around your purpose, your passion, your knowledge, your expertise, and then taking that to the marketplace in your business and exchanging. So number one asset is you. Number one investment has been and will always be something that you control and leverages your human life value assets the most, and that's your own business. Nothing will outproduce your ability to increase revenue in your own business by 30, 40, 50, or 100 times. I mean, we've heard the stories.
For sure.
They're out there crushing it, and they start out, and then the next year they're up 30%, and then the next year they're up 40%, then they have a 50% increase in gross revenue and net profits increasing. So if you're going to invest money somewhere, put it into yourself and put it into your own business. Increase your marketing, sales, your systems, your ability to lead and influence people. Put it there first because you control it versus what I had done, which is the CPA typical financial planner model out there today, which the financial institutions proliferate at such an alarming rate is, hey, give us your money and we'll be a wiser steward over it than you will be. No, invest it back into your own business and into yourself first. Then, number one strategy is, okay, what do I do with my cash that I'm not able to put back into my own business or back into myself? Where do I save my cash? If you're going to relinquish control of your cash, put it in an area where it's guaranteed, where it's protected against creditor claims and lawsuits, and where it's liquid to use back into your business and back into investing into yourself. And that's where you put your cash. And there's only so many places with a financial institution where you can put that cash. The overall premise of what and how to look at money and deal with it in your own life is AIS, number one asset, number one investment, and number one strategy. And to give you the best example of cash and maintaining control versus relinquishing control is this example of Apple. Apple, November of last year, reported a value of over $600 billion. And at the same time, they reported cash reserves of $268 billion.
They're doing something right.
Can you imagine almost half of the value of your entire company, $268 billion, is in cash reserves?
Yeah, that's like, what's that guy's name who was Pablo Escobar? He had too much money. It was a problem to store it. It's like, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when we and all of you as business owners have these cash reserves where we know our cash is guaranteed, protected, and liquid, and we use it back into our life strategically for future money decisions that we're going to make anyway, where we're the bank now, we pay ourselves the interest, we can innovate, we can produce at a much higher level. And so we're all about supporting the business owner, the entrepreneur, at producing at a higher level around his marketing, sales, and systems, and investing in himself strategically first, because it's an area that you control. So the biggest lessons that I took from losing all that money and how I've been able to earn it all back and educate entrepreneurs now around the nation. We're now in all 50 states, along with Garrett Gunderson, and why we wrote the book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? is now I look back on the experience of losing all that money and what I've gained as a result. So all of you out there listening to this, be very clear, and you guys already know this. Jonathan, you know this, but our past, what we've experienced in the past, makes us extremely more valuable today to be able to leverage and share that moving forward.
Yeah, I want to just acknowledge you for sharing that personal story there a few minutes back. That's really powerful and moving. So a point you mentioned that I 100% align with is when you have the cash reserve, you feel freed up, right? You feel,
yes.
I don't want to say liberated. It's a little dramatic, but that's really what it is. It's a sense of you can go into your interactions in what's called abundance, whatever. Basically, you feel like okay no matter what happens. Almost like a financial self-esteem where everything's kind of level, and if you go into like a deal and it doesn't work out, it's not a problem because it's already taken care of. But not only that, having that cash reserve, you have an opportunity to then confidently go into your next thing, and you don't have to be thinking about all of the entanglements of impending doom that come when you fail because you have things set up appropriately. So I think the service you provide, obviously due to it speaks for itself in its own, in your success and everything, but it's such a need, especially in this space. Could you expand upon that point further of having the cash reserve, how that can free up some mental space and bandwidth to then produce further?
Yeah. And I agree with everything that you just said. And that's the clarity that I now have personally. And it's the clarity that we share with each client and the clarity that Garrett and I share in our book. Because as an entrepreneur and a business owner, one of the biggest things that we seek, and Garrett Gunderson and I had 5 years of strategic coach with Dan Sullivan coaching us. And he talks about protecting your confidence. Have you heard of this specifically before, Jonathan?
Not specifically.
Protecting your confidence?
Not specifically.
Yeah. And I go further to talk about courage, confidence, and ultimately power. The reason I get up at 5 a.m. and exercise and do my hour of power each morning and put myself into a mindset and create the environment around me conducive to the results I want, and my gratitude journal and all this other stuff that I do on a daily basis out of self-interest is exactly why I have large cash reserves, because it protects my courage and my confidence and ultimately the power that I have in my life to be able to create at a much higher level. When we're stressed out, there's some power that can come from stress. There's some power that can come from digging us out of the pit of scarcity or lack or whatever is going on, right? We want to hustle at a much higher level. And then there's this chaos that comes from having all this abundance that we've created in our life. And in order for that chaos to be transitioned in abundance is for us to continually do things that challenge ourselves, but ultimately keeps ourselves in power with those challenges. And that's why we're an advocate for all of our business owners and entrepreneurs to have large amounts of cash to protect their courage and their confidence to produce at even higher levels.
Based off of what you've shared so far, was it your own personal experiences that led you to that belief?
That's exactly right. I would have not had these discoveries, at least this way. But when I lost all that cash and I was destitute, literally questioning life itself, and I'm a lot calmer today, Jonathan, talking about it than I was several years ago, much more emotional than I am today. But that bathroom floor, man, I had a pistol. I had a pistol out, and
wow.
And the only thing that kept me alive was the picture of my wife and kids, and me figuring out my because I was not healthy to be around at the time. So finance and money, you guys all know this, but finance and money plays a major role in our life. The emotions of our life, highs, lows. It's not only the way that we exchange value in the marketplace, right? Dollars follow value, all that kind of stuff. But it's also a tool for us personally. There's just so many ways for you, for myself, for all of us to leverage it to create even more value and exchange at a much higher level.
This might be a sales thing from me working personally door-to-door sales for almost 2 years, but there is an attitude of, if you can, like you say, the hour of power helps you maintain this, protecting your own confidence. And if you can maintain it, there's an attitude of breaking even, or like you still win even if you don't close. You don't win, you break even. In my opinion, it's not winning, but it's not a loss because you have to protect that confidence. The attitude of, man, that's like a very, for lack of better words, a hard thing to go through. And the fact that you can look back on that and grow stronger from it, like it's just another plate on the bench press, it's just another mile extra on your morning run, whatever that is, and grow stronger from that adversity and use that to your advantage and to increase your wins is an attitude that I really respect and admire in entrepreneurship. And that true, I think that's entrepreneurship at its truest form. And for any listeners out there who are going through some adversity right now, which, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business, your finances, and it's very encouraging to hear that it's a season, you can grow stronger from it, and you will. And it's just, again, really appreciate that example from your own personal life, Michael. And so I'd love to move forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's go ahead into the Heart Healthy Hustle round, Michael. Basically, I'm going to ask you a series of 3 different questions in relation to your heart, your health, and your hustle. So let me ask you, are you ready for the Heart Healthy Hustle round?
I am ready. Let's do this.
For heart, what activity do you use to care for and strengthen your internal character? Examples include things like solitude, reflection.
Yep. 2 specifically that I do on a daily basis. Number 1, I investigate my thoughts. Are they true or not? And number 2, I meditate.
For health, how do you maintain your physical health when the default mode for a lot of entrepreneurs is just full bandwidth?
Yeah, thank you. It's all out of self-interest because I believe that if my body and mind and spirit are at a higher level, not only am I happier, but I'm able to create more for other people that I'm around. So I exercise on a daily basis, and it's always themed around some sort of a competition. And I'm always working towards something. Right now, there's a series of 7 off-road races that I participate in, and the next one is in August. And so on a daily basis, I'm strengthening my core, my stamina. I'm going to be in this car racing, bouncing around for 12 hours straight. And every part of my body, mind, body, spirit has to be in sync. So I have a regimen where I'm doing spin class twice a week. I have a trainer with my wife that we do 3 times a week. And then I'm always doing other stuff on the off days of those 5 days. So it's a daily habit for me, but it's themed around competition.
Hustle, what's your main motivation for doing what you do?
I'll tie it back to the pain that I felt on that bathroom floor. And the main motivation for me is so that others do not have to, by my example, me sharing my story and sharing what's possible living AIS in their life, number 1 asset investment strategies, they don't have to feel that pain to the depth that I did, and that they can take that to the marketplace to create at a much higher level. Personally, my wife and our 2 kids, I'm a firm believer in legacy. It motivates me to share what I'm sharing and for it to transfer on to future generations, and why we have an emphasis on the Rockefellers and passing on not only the cash, but the life lessons behind that cash to continue to perpetuate that.
Yeah, a quote you might like is from a guest I had recently interviewed, Sean Cannell. He said, "Seek to build legacy over currency." So, what would you say are some strengths or weaknesses of this point, for motivation? Because I think tying it to family is the most powerful motivation, and but I'm just wondering your take on maybe any strengths or weaknesses with this point, because relationships are messy, and it doesn't matter who it's with, as perfect as a family's relationship can be. Would you go through any example? Would you be willing to share any examples, tough examples of how this is very powerful? And it's hard to put the words. What I'm asking is basically, it's tough when you do everything for your family and they're extremely supportive and you guys are all a team, you're one unit. It's all about the family. But it's also, it can be messy. And as a leader of your family, what are some things that you that you do to help keep this all together as a healthy unit?
Yeah. I'm very clear, Jonathan, that I'm a leader. I'm not a savior. I can't save anyone. But I can lead and inspire and guide, and the best way to do that is by example. And then I set that example for my wife and kids, but I also set it for my clients. I set it for our team here at the office. And so it's not just my wife and kids, but it's everyone else that I'm able to influence in some way. All of you that are listening, I hope that in some way that I'm influencing you to just take one little aspect of this. So legacy gives me more purpose every day to wake up and to think legacy. On a lot of my things, I put the hashtag think legacy. And it's this whole conversation of I'm clear that if I extract the lesson in my daily living, I get to benefit from that, but then I also get to share it with others, first and foremost, my family, and then my team here at the office, and all of my clients. And they don't always listen, or at least I don't think they're listening. And so, yeah, the messy part of it is that crap happens and there's this and that. But at the end of the day, there's a commitment to extract the lesson and to take that lesson to apply it moving forward. So back to your point earlier about learning from something, I'm a firm believer in extracting the lesson from whatever happens, good or bad, and learn from it and apply it in our life. And so there can be some frustration from that, being a leader and those things that I just said about I'm a leader, not a savior, and all of that. But I have a firm commitment to extract the lesson and to apply it moving forward. And then above all of that, like at the end of the day, I do a positive focus, and I always stop and look back and celebrate where I've come from to where I'm at, no matter what's gone on.
Great. So transitioning now into one of your areas of expertise, but financial. So for my listeners, I know they want to pick your brain over this, so to speak, but as much as I don't like that phrase, it's just kind of the reality of young professionals want the meat and potatoes. And so asking you, what are some of your top financial tips for a newer entrepreneur who's overwhelmed? They're doing a ton of things. They're taking a lot of action every day. They're bringing in some good income, but they're just not really sure where to start with their finances. So they're feeling a little bit scared. What would you share with them?
Yeah. Yep. Jonathan, it comes back to AIS. Start out by making a list of the things that you're passionate about. This is number one asset. You are the number one asset. List out your human life value assets. List out the knowledge, the expertise that you have, the things that you're good at, that you're passionate about, and do more of those things. And think of a balance sheet. On a balance sheet, you list assets and you list liabilities, and assets minus liabilities equal the equity that you have in your balance sheet. So you have a financial balance sheet, but then you also have a human life value balance sheet. And list out your human life value assets, things that you're passionate about, things that you have knowledge and expertise in, things that you're curious about, that you have interest in, that you want to learn more about, and go to work on those things, being very clear that as you do that, like you can hustle and you can make money short term, but if you're not passionate about it and you're not leveraging things that you have knowledge and excitement and expertise in, it's going to fizzle out. It's not going to last long term. So,
you keep that flame lit by having that human life asset balance sheet.
Yep. So that's number one. Then number two is be very clear about your number one investment. Be very clear that your highest rate of return has been and will always be in something you control and you're able to leverage your human life value assets in. Now, I'm fine with someone hustling and making money as long as they're working towards those other areas, because having that capital and being able to do that, as long as it doesn't preclude you from building that life that you love and want, right? If you're stuck in a career, but being the entrepreneur and the business owner, I would take you down that path of leveraging your human life value assets more and being very clear. So the main lesson here, Jonathan, around finance and money is being very clear about what you stand for and what you don't. meaning there's going to be investment opportunities. There are going to be this and that to invest in this other company, or invest in the stock market, or some retirement plan, or this or that, or this or that. But if it doesn't have to do with an area that you control, that you have knowledge and expertise in or passion, then it's a no.
Yeah,
it's a no, because it's a gamble at that time for you. And if that gamble derails you from producing at a higher level in the areas that you do control, too big of a cost.
Sure. So what if somebody rebuttals and says, well, I have a mental fortitude to gamble about 5% of my disposable, so to speak, disposable investment income? What would you tell them?
Okay, great. Yeah, as long as they're clear about the parameters around it and that they can gamble and that they're confident that won't derail them from those other areas, then yeah, they're clear. It's 5%. It's a specific amount of money or a percentage of their money. And if they lose it, but be very clear that if they do lose it, or if it goes really high and then it does derail them, just to be very clear about that and to watch it, because most people are not watching that and they're not clear about it.
That makes sense. Probably better to avoid that.
Yeah, but always investing in yourself, always investing in your own business, things that you control with number one, investment, and then number one, strategy, and the basis around that, number one, building large amounts of cash, but number two, using your cash for future money decisions that you're going to make anyway, but pay yourself the interest versus paying a bank. So in essence, you're creating your own system for banking and making future money decisions with. And we spell all of that out in our book, What Would the Rockefellers Do?
All right, Michael. So this has been an awesome interview thus far, and I would love for you to share your personal 3 most influential books and why, some of the earlier financial books that you invested your time into and learned a lot from.
Yeah. Number one all-time favorite is Atlas Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged was written by Ayn Rand, and it's a big read. It's around 1,200 plus pages. And for those of you that have not read it, this is my financial Bible. It's about capitalism. It's for business owners, and it talks about dollars follow value, exchange creates wealth, supports the business owner and the mindset around that. There's a famous speech in there that we send out to our clients. It's a character in the book named Francisco de Anconio, talking about money and money, is at the root of all evil, and that whole conversation. It's just a great, solid book. The second one would be The Work by Byron Katie. And she has a few more books out since she wrote that one, but that is my favorite, The Work. Oh, it's thework.com is her website, but the book is called Loving What Is. So the actual book is called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And that's all about questioning your thoughts. We believe things about ourselves. We tell ourselves stories about certain things, habits that we have, but are they true? And then, our book, What Would the Rockefellers Do, that Garrett and I wrote a couple of years ago, that's been really powerful. We use that with all of our clients and send that out. Yeah, so I'd go with those 3.
Terrific. Thanks for sharing that, Michael. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I think that you including your own book is great because it shows your conviction and belief in what you guys put together there. So the book is grounded on some principles, but then also includes a lot of tactical, actionable advice. Is that right?
100%. Well said.
Yeah. So, Michael, if you had a favorite tech or software tool you recommend using, it could be a paid one or a free one, what would it be?
The one that I'm using the most right now is OneNote. 100% of my meetings that I do with client are virtual. And so I use OneNote to animate and pull in PDFs and draw on it. And it's been working really well for us. OneNote.
Great. I call the next question my favorite one. It's quickly become my absolute favorite question. It's the park bench paradigm. Basically, if you could go back in time to when you were maybe 20, 22, 25, what would you tell your younger self and why? And if you would, try using the pronouns you, as if you are literally sitting there with yourself with your hand on your shoulder. And what would you say?
Man. Our son, Caden, just turned 19. So it's fun for me to think about not only talking to myself, but the conversations that I have with him today. So I'm picturing that also, Jonathan. But I would tell myself what I live by today, that I didn't live by when I was younger was that for you to be real, to tell the truth to yourself, the emotions that you're feeling, thoughts that you're having, questions that you have. So be real. That's telling the truth. To be raw, to let those emotions out. Don't hide them. Don't stuff them. Certainly be relevant. Make it applicable to what's going on today. And with all that in mind about being real, raw, and relevant, because I'm clear about this today, for you to ruthlessly be committed to results, not just interested in things, but once you get through that phase of discovering stuff, be committed. There's a big difference for you to be committed versus just interested in something. And so to take on that mindset, to be real, raw, relevant, and ruthlessly committed to results. And that's something that I learned from one of my mentors, Garrett White at Wake Up Warrior.
Powerful.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. In conclusion of the interview, you have your race coming up. You mentioned some of the things you use to prepare for that, Michael. If you guys are in any capacity like me or like Michael in terms of your affinity for things with motors that can move you, you will definitely love to go check out his racing page on Facebook. It's Mobbin Racing again, and that's at MOBBIN Racing. Super cool. And what are the vehicles you're using, Michael? We were talking before the show about it.
It's specifically a Can-Am. Can-Am is the manufacturer, and the model is the Maverick X3. It's a side-by-side. We take it and modify it and get it worthy to race out in the desert for those long distances.
Michael, I really appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And I want to go ahead and just give you opportunity to share any ways that my audience can get in touch with you, with AIS, and with everything that you're doing. So if you have any projects coming up, anything you want to share.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate also, Jonathan, the opportunity to be on here. I hope that all of you listening will get something from this and that you'll be more deliberate than ever before about the finances and money in your life. And we have lots of learning products on our website, Vault AIS, VAULT AIS.com, Vault AIS. Welcome you to go there. But if you'd like to, I talked with Jonathan about this before, and my co-author, Garrett Gunderson. We have hardbound books of What Would the Rockefellers Do? And this is Garrett Gunderson and I's life over the last 18 years of being in the financial services industry. We put it all in this book. And if you want to, we're offering, just for your listeners, Jonathan, a free copy of our book. You just pay the shipping. And if you'll text 310-621-2980 with your name, email, and mailing address, that's 310-621-2980. If you'll text your name, email, and mailing address, we will send you a copy of What Would the Rockefellers Do? You just pay the shipping and handling, and that's $6.95.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I know that's going to be much appreciated by my audience. Again, thank you for being on the show. Look forward to what you come out with in the future, and I'd love to have you back on sometime soon.
Yeah, awesome, Jonathan. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I want to say thank you, and also I want you to ask yourself why. What about this episode really stood out to you? I want to challenge you to take action on that thing. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate your time and consideration to go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, so it really helps the podcast grow and we can impact even more people who need this. Thank you guys for all of your support, and I will see you in the next episode.